Enjoy the piece of music we got going. So that's the DigiPol theme song brought to you by Superfuntime. Superfuntime.com is the composer, and I want to give a big shout out to him and thank him for making that. I hope it didn't blow people's ears out. I'm Alan Rosenblatt, and this is the Dr. DigiPol show, and today we are going to be talking about the state of the art of political technology. Political technology. We're looking at campaign technology, advocacy technology, social media, and the like. And I am being directed by my producer, one of my producers, to send the Facebook so we can stream live. And so there that is. So welcome to the Dr. DigiPol show. Today, as I said, we will be discussing the state of the art in political technology. State of the art in political technology. What does that mean? That means that we've got a false start here. Classic furniture. This is all new technology. And in fact, we're going to be talking about new technology and the challenges it poses for politics and advocacy. And of course, we have to experience that challenge ourselves in order to really understand what it is. I think it's method acting. And what I really need to do is muted. And we are now live on Facebook too. That is just fantastic. Facebook Live, one of the new technologies that are really changing the face of politics as we know it. And that is the theme for today's show: the state of the art in political technology, the degree to which new advocacy technology, new campaign technology, and new social media technology is reshaping the way we're doing politics, we're doing advocacy. And I'm really excited about our guests today. We've got three really good guests today. We're going to be talking with Brian Fratkin, the creator and founder of sparkinfluence.net, which is one of the newest social advocacy or digital advocacy platforms for advocacy organizations to mobilize people to influence activists to shape public policy. We're going to be talking with Lisa Marie, a social media marketing professor from Warsaw, Poland, who will be telling us a little bit about the view of American politics via social media from Europe. And you think it looks crazy here. Imagine what it looks like over there without any context. And then we're going to talk with Ali Breland, a reporter for The Hill, which is one of the top newspapers covering Congress and the executive here in DC. And he's going to talk about the research he's been doing on how the campaigns have been trying to embrace new social media technology like Snapchat and Periscope and Meerkat and Facebook Live and all that. And as I said, we had our own little challenges. This is our third episode. We had a little bit of challenges with our technology here. For some reason, my voice is muddled, no matter whether I use my built-in microphone or this beautiful snowflake microphone or my blue microphone, which is supposed to be really, really great, but apparently still a bit muddled. So I'm going to speak up as loud as I can. Our experience last time was that our guests will be able to speak very clearly, and you'll be able to hear them. And hopefully that is the case today. And we will be moving forward. So I am going to bring Brian up on the stage. Brian Fratkin. As I said, Brian Fratkin is the founder and designer of where did Brian go? Brian is not here yet. All right, so since Brian is not here yet, Lisa, we're going to bring you up first, and we're going to talk about the view of politics from Poland and from Europe. That's right.
Sorry,
So,
but
and we're
I
on the
was,
stage. Welcome.
can you hear me?
I
I
can
was
hear
so
you.
glad that I wasn't going to be, I was so glad not to be first. So when
Well,
Brian comes, boy, I'm going to give him peace of my mind.
that's right. That's right. We'll all do that. We'll all do that. Well, welcome to the show and welcome to this side of the ocean.
Thank
How are you?
you. Thank you. I was thinking if you tried maybe those cans and then you put that string of yarn in between and then another tin can,
Right.
it could be maybe unmuffled, maybe because the newest technology you can't always depend on. So just go back to the basics. Try that next time.
Yeah, I wonder, should we run it under the ocean or above the ocean?
Oh, geez, let's not get so technical. I just know the tin can, you put it, or you can use a glass, just put it like against the wall or against, I guess, the speaker.
So,
No, but I
Lisa,
hear you fine.
oh,
Welcome.
excellent,
Welcome
excellent.
to Poland. It's
Thank
10
you so
o'clock
much.
here.
10
Hello,
o'clock.
everyone.
Thank you for staying up so late. And
Oh,
so,
gosh, this is nothing.
so very quickly, just tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a marketing professor specializing in social media.
No, no, yes, I am. I am a marketing professor. I specialize in social media marketing, but
Uh-huh.
we also have a lot of journalism students here. I have two undergrads in communications and journalism. And I started all my work in television and then evolved into the newest technology of television, which is the internet. So I'm doing all the social media here. I have a wonderful array of students from around the world. That's why I was really interested to have all of their opinions. I will try to give you my opinion representative of what I have seen from their eyes as well as myself on, I think what you're asking is how we're seeing the US presidential campaign via social media. Uh,
Yes, indeed.
on,
So,
okay,
I mean,
so
our
I
experience here
teach
has been
here in
it's so
Warsaw
different.
and I also teach in America. Yeah,
Yes.
sorry, go ahead.
But all
I'm
right, so
sorry.
you taught at Harvard this summer, and I know you brought me in for a guest
Yes,
lecture.
I've been. Yes, you're wonderful. I need a specialist in politics. I pretty much try to stay out of highly volatile situations, especially when you have such a diverse cultural, religious, socioeconomic background for all my students.
I
So
can
this
imagine.
could be a little challenging, but I will try to be as politically correct for the US audiences and
Well, actually,
as
what
honest as I can be.
yes, I prefer the honesty over the political correctness. So, what I'd like to know is, we sit here over in the United States and we're watching politics here. We're watching Trump. We're watching Hillary. Watching the way the media is covering it. We're watching what's happening on social media, and it's so different from anything we've ever done over here in terms of the content and the focus of the campaign. And I'm just dying to know, what does it look like from Europe?
There was a small muffle right before the actual question. You said, what is it?
Yeah,
No,
what are
I
you
didn't
seeing?
hear. I'm sorry.
How does it, what are the impressions you're getting? Are we presenting ourselves well, or are we presenting ourselves not so well? How does American politics look from your end of the social media screen?
Well, I'm not sure if it matters as much how you present, rather how we choose to watch. And so each platform will have a strength and it also has a different audience. The most popular posts and shares and views will be of the most entertaining news stories. So if you are viewing through YouTube, for instance, we're not going to be saying that Facebook's most, since it's the most popular social media platform currently, we're not going to say that the most popular posts shared on politics for the US presidential race is going to be the actual debates on very sensitive topics and, even mundane tax reforms, it's going to be no, 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 blah, 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 like the Peanuts episode, and then you'll hear maybe some kind of Hillary is dead, or Trump will say something, anything, and almost always something that will be the major headlines, and that's going to get the shares. And when someone shares that and it goes through the newsfeed, then naturally it's just pushed to be more popular. I was just curious, as of the last week, going through the platforms. I mean, it wasn't enough for me to just try to look at the different newspapers from France, Italy, Germany, because I have lived in 8 countries. So I've been watching I'm American born, so I've been watching US politics from abroad for most of my life. And it wasn't enough to try to see just what is trending, but I really had to compare it. So let's just take a raw, very amateur look. Over the last week, we had a few things going on worldwide, and I wanted to look at the worldwide concentration on what would be talked about the most in comparison to Trump and Hillary. And considering that on September 8th, we had North Korea launching its 5th nuclear weapons and most powerful threat so far for nuclear weapons. That was on the 8th. And I wanted to see what would be the comparison for the worldwide trending searches on Google for North Korea compared with Trump and Hillary. And I found that even on that day of September 8th, we have 7. With this, let's look at like a rating chart from 0 to 100, and we can look at it as percentages. So in Canada, we have, so I'm looking at our neighbors, America as neighbors. We have North Korea as a 7. We have Trump as a 79, and we have Hillary as a 43. So even though it happened exactly on that day, and I was watching the 4 main news channels, international news channels of BBC and CNN and Bloomberg and Euronews, even though that's what I saw the most on television, it doesn't matter, because on social media, what was most trending and what was most searched for worldwide, not just, let's say, in Canada, Mexico, Poland, US, but still on a comparison, we're looking at Trump still winning on something so significant, just even on that day. So, on August 24th, so we're not even 8 days, within this week, on August 24th, we had the very sad earthquakes in Italy. 247 people were killed. This is a major international news story, and it was everywhere. I believe it was covered probably on American news as well at a very high rate. It was here constantly on the 4 main international channels. Still, when I look at August 24th at the earthquake worldwide for search topics, we have the earthquake ranking in at 15, and still somehow Trump came up as 50, and then Hillary as 17. So it really doesn't matter. I mean, and you can go back and try to analyze, why did Charlie Hebdo or why did it still get less views than boy bands on Twitter? And it doesn't necessarily have to do with the fact that society is not interested. It has to do with what do you want to share and what you want to see before you start, while you're working and maybe while you're on the bus going from home. So I have to look at those things which are really important, because even when you look through just this last week, Trump will always, when you look up US politics in comparison to Trump, in comparison to the word Hillary, you will always find, and you can vary that slightly, and you will always find that Trump will be about 4 to 3 times as popular in searches worldwide as Hillary. So there's really no comparison. There's like a 1 for US politics in general. So this is normal. Even around the 11th of September, we're looking at, for some reason, Hillary went up to 94, the first ever in all of the history comparing her in search topics to Trump. And Trump was at 44. I wonder why it is. It could be because people were searching to see if Hillary is dead. Those were like the three words: Hillary is dead, or Hillary's body double, stunt double, who knows? But this is what caused her for the very first time to jump from the previous day, which was 16 worldwide again, to 94. But you know what? She went down to 64, even as she waved and showed signs of just having pneumonia. I mean, and then she went down to 45, and Trump's back up to 51. She's 33 today, and worldwide worldwide searches on just U.S. presidential debates is just basically at a 1.
So
what does that really mean? It means whatever I'm going to tell you, the view that we're seeing from abroad of the US politics means that we're seeing something that has to do with not maybe reality or the issues. It has to do with what will be trending, what will be interesting. And you can always say, okay, it should be right. It should be relevant, informative, timely, and entertaining. Well, entertainment will always be kicking off when it comes to Facebook. If Facebook is number 1, so of course you can say that Snapchat is, the number 1 platform from 14 to 24, 14 to 21, 16 to 24. Okay, they're probably not saying a whole lot or sharing a whole lot in 10 seconds. So all we can really compare are among the platforms of Twitter, Facebook, basically that. It's not going to be Instagram, of one of the politicians eating something. So when you spoke at my Harvard class, and I remember one of my students from Qatar saying, there was the first question. He said, I feel really bad for you. You have only to choose between something like a liar and a thief and a clown or something like this. And I couldn't remember what he had said. And this is really important because this means that these are the most watched clips. It doesn't have to do really with the news or what the issues are. It has to do with what is being shared and trending the most and why these shares happen. And then you have to also look at algorithms. Is America looking bad? No. If it would be looking bad, I don't think anybody would be paying attention to it. I can say that, when it comes to something like sexism abroad, whether in Eastern, Central, or Western Europe, they're not impressed. Big deal. Even if a politician would have some kind of affair, and if I get killed, yeah, that's not big headlines, but it is a lot of fun to share, inflammatory, crazy things that people wouldn't normally say, or to show, you have these, one of the most popular ways to see entertainment is to watch through YouTube. So when you have like Seth Meyers or Trevor Noah, when you have a huge majority of the youth audience trying to catch up on the news in a compact, entertaining way, then of course you're going to have comedians who are presenting the politics from America in a compact, highly entertaining, and with skits like you showed, where James Corden pretending or singing Trump is a-hole. And sorry, I don't even know if that's, we don't have censors, so I can say anything. But this is a song that's a jingle that will get shared. So does that mean that this is what people are thinking is the only thing going on with the politics? No, it just means that we're being entertained abroad by it. There are a lot of hardships and problems going on, and people really don't feel like focusing on it right now. So of course it's tons of fun, and that's why people are more likely to be clicking on, what did Trump say? What did Trump say when Hillary died? And what did Trump say about the body double? I mean, I even had to figure out, I love being able to look at some of the most popular websites that show pictures of Hillary's body double, which is actually Hillary. It's just pictures showing woman who looks like Hillary shaking hands with her husband or Trump or whomever, but woman looking like Hillary. Yeah, it's because it's her, but it doesn't matter because every one of those clicks will create more clicks, will create more popularity. I don't think that you're looking bad. I don't think that they're looking bad. And I never forget just how hard it is for a politician to carry out this kind of work. It's demanding and crazy, and pretty much everyone wants to kill you. I don't know why they do it.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, my understanding is we're trying to get you and a few of your students back for a full show later on as we get closer to the election. So I'm looking forward to hearing
I,
more about what you're
thanks.
seeing. Yes,
I
and
have a I have a lot of perspectives and a lot of opinions. It's fantastic to watch every one of my students, whether it be from Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, Spain, Iran, sharing their perspective of American news, what's interesting, and shooting it out to their thousands of audience or followers in that country. So you have influencers deciding what will be entertaining about American politics, not necessarily the actual politicians themselves.
right, that's very true, very true. Well, thank you very much, Lisa. We'll come back
Thank
during the
you.
Q&A if you've got more to add. And now I'm going to
Thank
bring
you.
up. You're very welcome. Now I'm going to bring up Brian Fratkin, the founder of sparkfluence.net. Hey, there you are, Brian.
There I am. Hey guys.
I can hear you. It's good to see you. Good to hear you.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the show. And why don't we start by, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what Spark Influence does?
Sure. Well, I wanted to first comment. I think it's a nice little change between Lisa Marie and my background. She's that global perspective, and I've got an old map of DC behind me. So I think that's a nice touch. Spark Influence. So in terms of sort of advocacy software and an online sort of unified community, that's really what we do. And I think that I've been working in the advocacy business for about a decade now, and just grew frustrated with what was out there in terms of data was so siloed. And it's what we saw in politics. It's what you and I talk about all the time, Alan, 8 years ago of it was, I had my voters here and I had my fundraisers there and I had my this there and my canvassers and everything else. And I tried to bring them all together and I prayed that my spreadsheets were right. And it was frustrating. And I think that where we got frustrated was the same way with advocacy, because it's I would say, as politics is probably a few years behind consumer related products, right? Advocacy and associations are years behind politics, and we're sort of fighting that good fight of bringing associations and corporations and just advocacy efforts in general back to that level of data and understanding and listening and being able to leverage content and leverage data points in a positive way of saying, look, I don't want to bother you. Everybody's busy, but you've told me what interests you. So let me use that for everybody's benefit to get us together to then push an issue forward and get us where we all want to be. And so Spark Influence is really sort of a culmination of that, of looking at what politics has done, looking at consumer marketing software and bringing that into an advocacy association world that really needed it.
So it's interesting because, you and I have both been in this business for a very long time. And it seems that early on, companies were building out advocacy platforms. CapWiz, Capital Advantage doing
Sure.
it, and Salsa and a few others early on. And because they were siloed,
Right.
they were separate, they built self-contained systems where the data for advocacy actions and essentially email addresses of people who are activists that you email to, who then take actions to send messages to members of Congress or to
Right.
local lawmakers in order to influence their decisions. That data got built into its own standalone system.
Right.
Meanwhile, over on the retail side or on the organizational side, you had the rise of CRMs, customer relations management databases.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, there was this idea that, maybe we should integrate these databases
Right.
together.
Right.
And at first it was, daily downloads and uploads, and then there was a handshake, and then it became APIs. And I think in the long run, ideally you want real time as the data comes in, you want it going into all the buckets it needs to be in. And I think that's kind of where you're trying to go with this, isn't it?
That's exactly right. Is I think that advocacy data is actually some of the most important information that you have at your enterprise. As I like to say, it doesn't matter how good your sales funnel is or your membership funnel as an association. If a law or regulation comes down from up high, being let's say the capital, Sacramento, wherever it might be, you're screwed. And so if you're not using the information that you're gathering across the board, and that's what we're seeing is just data integration. It's the same thing that we've seen in consumer products. It's the same thing that we've seen in political world of your donors are your voters, and that's the line. We're seeing now in association world where if I now know what interests drive you to take an action, then maybe I can sell a white paper to you or have an event and invite you to it or understand what you're interested in. And so it is this very positive, and it's not nefarious, it's very positive of if we can help associations bring that data together, then everybody wins. Both the end user who's a member, who's busy, who's got a lot of things going on, but now can be approached in a way that makes the most sense for them, as well as then the other side of the association who says, look, I'm not going to bother my people, but I know that these people love safety or these people love tax issues or whatever it might be, and different issues and pieces to it. And let's approach them when the time is right with the right message, and we'll get a lot more out of them. And so we're not bothering them, but we're just saying, look, here's the right message, the right time, the right ask. We can get that all in one place, and we can do that layering in social, we can do that layering in voter files, and we can really bring all that data together to make a better enterprise sort of association model and get rid of that old siloed format of, okay, I've got my advocacy and government relations, and I've got my membership over here, and I've got my sales team and my renewal team over here, and ne'er the 15 different groups will ever meet, right? That's not how these things need to be run anymore, and that's sort of where we came from to try to take advantage of it. I can keep going.
Yeah. Well, so I know. Looking at the evolution of the technology briefly, and let me sort of quickly kind of step right through that. Early on it was there was let's put the congressional directory online.
Right.
And then there was, well, let's make it so that you can send an email to people, to members of, and then there was, well, let's be able to build campaigns and collect email addresses and run that whole process so that we can build a community of activists.
Right.
And early on, in that early period of, essentially we're looking at from the mid 1990s until, basically 2010.
Sadly, yes.
But then, even later than that, it was all about email, websites, maybe some online advertising.
Right.
But 2004, 2005, 2006, we start to see the emergence of Meetup and MySpace, and Facebook, and Twitter, and all of a sudden, people are starting to talk about politics more and more independently of advocacy groups and politicians.
Right.
And then we reached this point in 2008 in the summer where 42% of Americans are paying attention to politics in June, when usually they don't pay attention to it until October.
Of course.
And even Halloween. Right? And so one of the things that I've always been really fixated on is tapping that's what's starting to get really engaged in politics independently of what campaigns are asking them to do. And in particular, I think I mentioned this last week, that as much as 98% of what people talk about on Facebook with respect to candidates is not being driven by the candidate's Facebook page.
Right.
It's being driven by people saying it on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And so tapping into that, I think this is one of the things that Spark Influence really pushes the envelope on, not just mobilizing people, but being able to say, yeah, now that you're talking about politics and social media, why don't you talk at politicians?
Right. Right.
And
we've we've seen. Well, I think it's just more of a general idea and concept, right? I think that, one of our big concepts here is that advocacy needs to be sort of done more as a business and less as a silo. And what I mean by that is simply it needs onboarding, it needs customer service, it needs questions and answers, it needs all of those things that good consumer products do. Advocacy groups need to be doing as well, because that's really what's pushing the envelope forward. It's no longer, as you mentioned, sort of that idea of, hey, here's our legislative action center for our association, and you can come here to find out all of our action items and what bills we're tracking, and here are your legislators, and look them up, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the old way of doing it. Nobody is going to somewhere to look that information up on an association website. What we're seeing a lot more of, though, is that customer service, that consumer product attitude of, okay, I'm now going to buy from you. I got to put my quotes higher. Buy from you because you do good, quote unquote. Now, excuse the poor English there, but it's sort of the idea that people buy Toms because they like the shoe and they like the idea that they're getting a shoe given somewhere else. Well, how do we take advantage of that? And I mean that in a good way. Like, how do we, as an association, as an organization, start to look at what they're doing for what we're doing? And it's about humanizing the issue, right? We've got to say, look, this tax issue means something to you because of this. We've got to be transparent, right? There was so much. We still deal with clients now that want, here's a welcome letter from the CEO, and I want that front and center on a website that we put out, or on a mobile site, or on our Twitter handle. It makes no sense, right? They want people to people, much like politics, much like we've seen with campaigns. They want to hear from their friends. They want to hear from people that they're interested in, and influencers, on what's going on. And we need to be able to foster that relationship. We need to be able to foster that idea that, look, we are a, quote, business. And if you have a question, we can answer it. If you need to be onboarded, that's what we're here for. Thank you for taking action. Did you know we also do X, Y, and Z? Did you know that a month from now, this, and this will happen? Those same automated emails that you get from a J. Crew, a Banana Republic, a Bed Bath & Beyond, you've just bought something and now they want you to buy something else, or they want you to know about something that's coming down the line. We should be doing that in advocacy, and until recently we haven't. And that's really where we saw the opportunity of saying, this is the new way of doing things. We're trying to make a sale. That's what we're trying to do. It's just, my sale is, I want you to buy into what I'm believing in, and write your legislator and talk to them and tell me that you live down the street from them so that we can all do this better. Those are the kind of purchases I want you to make, but the concepts are all the same. And that's what we've seen move into politics. And now, thankfully, we're finally seeing it move into advocacy and association world, where they're realizing it's not just 7 different siloed groups. It's one team that data can help to drive us all. And if we foster those relationships well, we can all succeed.
I really appreciate that, Brian. And I'm going to transition to Ali now, but I think this is a good way to transition here, because what we're really moving into in this phase is that, and I'm going to take you off the screen as I do.
Sure.
Is that we are slowly but surely changing from advocacy groups and associations putting out what they want and how they want to shape the space, and spending more time paying attention to what the audience is doing, what they're interested in doing, how they're communicating, where they're communicating, and making those two things meet in the middle and mesh and integrate. And so this gives rise to why social media, I think, is so important in the advocacy mix, because it is a great listening tool. And the more organizations, associations, advocacy groups, candidates, campaigns listen to their audience, the more they're going to be able to speak to the needs of their audience while serving the needs of the campaign. And so with that, welcome Ali Breland from The Hill. How are you?
I'm great. Yourself?
I'm doing very well, thanks. And you and I talked a couple weeks ago about an article you were working on, which is looking at some of these new social media tools, in particular, looking at Periscope, Meerkat, Snapchat, which are sort of the hip, edgy, and in some cases far more elusive technology in the social media space for campaigns to wrap their heads around than some of the Facebook and Twitter, which we've become very comfortable with. And So the question, I mean, I think one of the initial questions is, you know, uh, to what extent are we sort of being attracted by bright shiny objects versus figuring out what we need to be doing and which technology is the best one to use. And maybe that's at the heart of the challenge that campaigns are having. What do you think?
Okay. In our conversation, you actually summed it up pretty well. These things are bright, shiny objects. People really like them. But in general terms, they're being used by a lot of people. I use them, my friends use them a lot. Um, but they've become sort of weird, novel things that, as Vincent Harris, a campaign strategist, put very nicely, they're sort of they're tools right now that are being checked off, um, but not used in very elaborate, interesting ways. They're not being used to their fullest potential.
Right.
And I think each and every one of them actually can be used in a very compelling way that can be really useful for campaigns. They show so many dimensions that technology right now isn't necessarily suited to facilitate in the best ways. They can show you different sides of campaigns that maybe like sitting down and recording a YouTube video and then slowly uploading it can't do as well as shooting something backstage on Snapchat in several seconds and then posting it immediately.
Right. Or live streaming it with Periscope in real time.
Exactly. There's not even like a gap in that. You're doing it all in one fell swoop.
Although I'm sure, candidates can be very frightened of real-time video that is saved forever. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think most people are. People are just like not conditioned to want to have their lives recorded in that way. Um,
yeah.
like
It's interesting. Um, these technologies, I mean, you hit on an interesting point that, these technologies were not really designed for politics, but are being adapted to it. And
yeah,
slowly and not very effectively and not fully strategically. You think back, early on, Meetup, for example, back in 2004, was originally designed so that Chihuahua owners and knitting circles could find a way to get together offline by using online tools. And then the next thing you know, there are 2,000 groups around the country working to help elect Howard Dean president. You know, uh, the unexpected transition. Um, YouTube, was not really designed for political purposes. It was designed to just share your life and upload videos, and very quickly became part of politics. Facebook has become very much a big political conversation to the point where a lot of people who use Facebook who think it shouldn't be about politics say, I'm I'm unfollowing all my friends that talk about politics because it's not why I'm here. And one of the things, and we talked a little bit about this with regard to Snapchat. Everybody wants to get on Snapchat for politics because there's 150 million people using it. It's the hype. It's the way to reach millennials and kids and future voters and young voters. And yet, the reason why they got onto Snapchat was to avoid these kinds of broadcast uses and to talk only with their friends. What did you find when did you get a chance to talk to some campaigns about how they're using the technology and what kind of reactions were you getting when you reached out that way?
yeah. So I was actually able to talk to the gentleman I referenced earlier, Vincent Harris. He was on the Rand Paul campaign, and then I was also able to talk to Bernie Sanders digital campaign people. Uh, and the interesting thing about both of them was that compared to other candidates, they actually use these tools a lot more.
Right,
And they had some really interesting results. When I talked to Vincent Harris, he talked about how um, one thing he did was the campaign periscoped Senator Paul for 12 hours, and that day recorded just enormous, enormous numbers on mentions of Senator Paul. Like it was just incredible numbers that they hadn't really seen before, and they got some really good results out of it. And it's stressful, like we talked about before, for candidates to use. Like no one likes to be on the Truman Show, and no one would like to be on the Truman Show. Like Truman was very upset when he found out what was happening.
right,
And then in the case of Bernie Sanders' campaign, uh, there's a lot of reasons why Bernie Sanders is able to appeal to young voters. Uh, over Senator or over Secretary Clinton, but one of the big reasons, um, from my perspective, from what it seemed like, was that they were able to use these technologies in a way that the Clinton campaign just wasn't using. They were really hitting in very tightly with the younger base, and they had it was very clear talking to the strategist that he had a very good, resolute, sound conception of how these tools work. And I didn't talk to anyone in the Clinton campaign, so I can't compare their understandings and say for sure this is better. But just the general understanding that I got compared to politics in general is that he knew it was up, and that led to some very good things in terms of like younger voter engagement. And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting because the irony is hard to escape that Bernie Sanders is not a young person, and
hmm
he was able to engage young voters in a way that I think I've always argued that it's when you in a meaningful way talk with and listen to young voters that they feel heard, that they feel like their opinions matter and have an impact on the likelihood of policy. That all of a sudden we get a campaign that engages the youth, and it's not about how old the candidate is, it's about how open the candidate is to working and listening to the younger audience. And social media was the set of channels that allowed them to tap into that. And you mentioned that you talked with Sanders' digital team, and that was Revolution Messaging, and we're working out a date to get Scott Goodstein, the president of that company, and maybe some of his colleagues to come on the show. And Scott's not young himself. He's younger than Bernie Sanders, younger than I am. But he's not a millennial, but he's got his one foot in politics and he's got his other foot in kind of the rock and roll culture. And for him, he has this long history. I remember he was organizing Save the Whale campaigns on MySpace way back in in 2004. This guy has a deep way to use social media to engage audiences of people, audiences that felt unserved, unlistened to.
hmm
And I think that's really, really the key. And the challenge that all candidates have, especially older candidates, is making young voters feel like they are respected and heard. And you know, I've heard some good things about Clinton's in-person interaction. I've also seen, some of her online stuff has been a little more stiff, certainly by comparison to Bernie Sanders, and definitely by comparison to Donald Trump. And maybe that's the challenge that she's had on social media in particular. Uh, doesn't translate the same way when she's one-on-one in person. Um, I remember
hmm
her showing up on one of the late night TV shows, talk shows back in 2008. She was really very interactive, engaging, very easy to talk to in a way that didn't come across in some of her early videos that were produced. Um, what else? Before we move on to some of the another issue in the news, tell me, what else were your impressions with regard to technology? You think that there's going to be an improvement in how they use the technology, these social media
Yeah,
technologies, in the next few months, couple months?
absolutely. I don't know within the next few months. Um, Scott certainly expressed hope that there would be, and he was very quick to note several times that the elections are not over, and things can change as campaigns grow smarter and more savvy. And there arguably has been a slight uptick, even though these campaigns are not necessarily the most robust users of the tools. They do like directly as users, but they have been purchasing ads on Snapchat. Um, and so there's potential there. I mean, it remains to be seen. I don't know. I haven't been in contact with anyone particularly about these things. It's possible, and certainly not if within the next several months. Certainly, like the next election cycle, I think that people have a firmer grasp of these things. I know in my own experience, just it took me a while to understand how to best communicate in Snapchat. And just talking to my other friends who are in their early 20s, they've kind of had similar experiences where they were slow to understand the platform, and
Yeah,
um,
Snapchat's been very
it takes some
elusive.
time.
Yeah. Let me ask you,
Yeah.
turning the tables a little bit. To
Mhm.
what degree are you using and finding success using social media to promote your own articles?
Yeah. I mean, so it depends. A moderate amount. It depends on what the article's about. Content, like the actual substance, is ultimately the most important thing. I guess you can package it in whatever way you want on social media, but it resonates most if you are sending something out that people actually care about.
Right.
Um,
The
I've had a
content is
moderate amount. Yeah,
uh,
exactly. And so, I mostly just use Twitter to send out my own articles, and if it's something interesting that catches people's attention, it works. I don't have anything particularly like insightful there, but
yeah.
I do it because I know it's
Have you
sorry.
considered engaging other reporters who are working the same beat in the same
Yeah,
topics and into
so I've
conversations
noticed
on Twitter?
I have a little bit, and I've noticed that happens since I've moved to the beat. People are very interested in doing that, and that definitely does expand engagement a lot. When I do have those kinds of conversations, that's when I do build followers, and like people are like, oh, people who are interested in tech realize that uh, I am a person that covers these kinds of things, and so they'll follow me or like look at the things that I'm looking at or putting out, whether it's my own writing or someone else's. Um, I guess like understanding the node that you're in Twitter really helps you branch out beyond that. I haven't really used Facebook so much beyond that,
I think
but
Twitter is
that's
the
something to
ultimate
explore about
journalist
as well.
tool, to be honest,
Yeah,
much more so
it's
than
like
Facebook.
LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter are all for journalists at the same time.
Right, right. I crave, you and other reporters in your beat and reporters out there that share similar beats on other topics, that you guys are immersed in the issues. You're finding and gathering all this information and having just an ongoing conversation with each other, and
Mhm.
just being in the peanut gallery watching that conversation, I think would be so interesting and make me want to read your next article and their next article more. It just seems like the potential there to really be a thought leader, not just a reporter, is huge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's a really interesting point. That is true, I think, and I've been guilty, I guess, of observing that more than I have been in participating in it. Um, and yeah,
fair enough.
that's a good way
The
to get
learning curve.
followers, and yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
a little bit.
yeah. So there was another
I'm just
story in
too
the
busy,
news.
you know.
Right, right, right. Everybody's walking across
I
the
just, I
street,
just
Snapchatting and avoiding traffic, or not avoiding
exactly.
traffic. Um, I shared a story with you by email before, and you said you were going to take a quick look at it. So there are protests or protectors, as they call themselves, from the Sioux tribe up in Dakota, north in the Dakotas, protesting the Dakota Access Pipeline, um, all within the United States, unlike the Keystone Pipeline. So there's no State Department issues involved, but the environmental questions, the respect for the Indian, the Native American sovereignty issues are there. And one of the things that struck me about the protests, aside from the fact that it seems like with the Keystone, it seems to be disrupting the process of moving forward with it to some degree, is that in order to demonstrate that the protesters were by design peaceful, they've been live streaming what they've been doing in order to prove that they're being peaceful. And and in response to this, there's been some alleged, or some documentation of the construction companies coming in and being very aggressive. And it's not necessarily translating effectively over into the media coverage. In fact, there's very little media. And I was wondering, you have any thoughts as to, why, number one, what do you think of the strategy? And number two, why don't you think they're breaking through into the mainstream media?
Yeah, that's a good question. I see things like this like a decent amount. I don't think that like there a lot of protests happen on a fairly significant basis, and it's like things that you would see if you were walking out and you'd be like, oh, why is no one covering this? But like when you were at a media institution, you kind of see just the volume of these things occurring, and so they the people involved in them are like very upset that they're not getting coverage, and sometimes they are justifiably, but sometimes these things are significant, but perhaps not necessarily like more significant than the number of other protests going on. And then beyond that, like I don't want to say too much and speak outside of my area of expertise. But I, I don't know, like it's happening in a remote place. There, a lot of these things surprisingly are sort of determined by geography, I think, more than people would expect or realize. It was very easy for the Baltimore protests to catch wind very because one, it's a very populous place. You have a lot of people engaged. That makes it a big deal. Um, Obviously, like this isn't even addressing the causes behind it or like giving way to that or not giving way to it, but just there's that aspect, and then beyond that, it's very close to DC. There's a lot of journalists here, so it makes it easy to for them to catch notice, see what's happening, and then cover it. Whereas in a more remote place like this, it's getting very little coverage. The website that you linked to me, like, presumably doesn't have a tremendous readership. It's not something that's like I had never heard of it
Right.
before. I don't think many of
And
my peers would have.
let me ask
So, I think that's
you, so to what degree are you able to choose your own stories versus assigned?
for the most part, so it depends from publication to publication. If the Hill, there's a healthy expectation. I for the most part pick my own stories, but it's not. I'm not like going out of my way to pick. Like there are things that I'm expected to cover. I'm expected to. My co-reporter and I expected to like be very privy to what's happening at the FEC. Every time there's something related to technology, like it's just understood that I will go handle that, and it's my job to notice that. Um, and
Right.
occasionally, like if there's something that my editors think that I wouldn't necessarily think to look at myself, but they want me to, then they'll go and make an assignment.
So let me ask you, it came to my attention over the last day or two that while there's all this media attention to how well the antibiotics are working for Hillary Clinton, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of coverage of the fact that next month Donald Trump has to appear in court because he's being sued for raping an underage woman.
Mhm. So that's
Does that make
interesting.
sense?
I mean, like part of it is that there are so many strange things on the Trump campaign that I think for reporters, it's like uh, there's a GIF that's like popular that reporters use when there's a lot of news of a bunch of tennis balls raining down on this dog, and the dog doesn't know what to do. It's just like whack-a-mole. Like
Right, right,
people
right.
get bogged down in the details, which might be a good political strategy moving forward if that's what you want to do as a
So
candidate.
it's kind of like flood the zone, except instead of flooding it
Yeah,
with positive stuff, you're flooding it with crazy stuff so that you don't notice the really crazy.
just a lot of yeah, whatever you can find to make it hard to notice things. Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate the insights. I'm gonna bring Lisa up for a moment again. She had a comment, and Ali, if you have more to chime in, at any point, just raise your hand, and that'll trigger me to bring you back up. And I may try and turn to you for a question if something comes up. So here comes
Thanks.
Lisa, and thank you very much. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, it actually has to do with what we were just talking about. And you mentioned something about the age of his followers or the age of Bernie Sanders. And what I believe is that it doesn't have so much to do with the age of Bernie or the age of his supporters. It has to do with the category of sharers. So people who use social media do it for different reasons. And his followers are people who want to share to make a difference for something. They're not just watching and clicking to support someone or recipe, something like that, but they are to influence for some kind of change. So his age supporters' age doesn't matter. But what does matter is that Bernie focused all his attention on the correct platform, which was Facebook. And not only that, but his supporters use and go to Facebook for the sharing and gathering of information. And not only that, but when you compare, even right now, if you would look at the Facebook pages of Bernie, Hillary, and Trump, you will see a definite difference in images and in inflammatory images, emotional and evocative images are the things in all posts that will be shared and watched and then clicked on and read. And he has, not just because he's able to talk about, like the first few things I saw was something like Native Americans, or you said the pipeline, or ecology, or something going on with the environment. These aren't the visions and these aren't the images that Hillary is showing on her Facebook. They aren't on Trump's either. So they aren't going to push the same emotion. When you have Trump's supporters mainly are going to read something clever, snappy, and if it's short, quick, and somewhat provocative, they're going to share it. But that's going to be on Twitter. So if Facebook is the #1 platform and the supporters of the Bernie were on Facebook, and those supporters are a specific dynamic who want to, their involvement in social media has to do with sharing to create some cultural difference or a cause or make an action, then that is why he became so popular on social media. They use Periscope, they don't use Snapchat, only Facebook. So we're looking at the fact that also Bernie was able to use videos and share videos more than the other candidates. So if you're sharing videos and you're sharing images, then Facebook's going to give you extra time in all people's news feeds. So that is another thing that made him more popular and more powerful when it came to social media. But also, like when you have emotional issues, they're just something that easily shared, easily to comment on. Whereas when you have, if you've ever noticed at commentary on, let's say, YouTube, Facebook, Snapchat, or Twitter, you have trolls who like people insult you if you just come on and smile. They're going to be like, you should die. You look stupid. You should just give up, unsubscribe. So they're they're a whole different audience. They are not part of your family and friends. They come up with different identities, so they can say whatever they want. And so it's this different interaction that's going on with Hillary when she uses her posts, which when you look at her posts, they're like a text or a picture of her, and or a picture of her pointing at something. Oh, okay, we've seen her, and this isn't going to create any more shares. She did come up with one of the most clever social media strategies, which I thought was very fun. That made lots of people play. And it was this game where it would be, what would Trump say about you? And what you did was, just when you can do many different types of games, like who would you be on the cast of Friends? Well, she was clever enough to figure out that people are loving to share these kind of things. They'll go into it and it says, it'll take your picture and they'll be like, hater. And just people wanted to see the inflammatory, very funny comments that Trump has always just, thrown on people, put on themselves, and then they shared it. So Hillary, just during that very small campaign, this very, very clever tactic, she was able to gather huge amounts of new email addresses and all of the friends, because you have to click allow her and her campaign to access all your friends and family and what you do and what you read. So ever since I played that game, I've been getting probably 5 emails a day from her, and then she finds me everywhere. She was in my bathroom this morning. I don't know how she did it, but it has to do with that game that I played.
Well, I know that Brian has told me about Spark Influence, that when you start filling out your account, when you sign up and start to take action, as you're putting in your information, as soon as you put in your email address, his system's already going out and finding your social media accounts and finding where you are. And this kind of real-time appending is really powerful stuff. And then all of
It's
a sudden you can start
fantastic.
monitoring and interacting.
Oh yeah.
Very,
Oh
very
yeah.
powerful stuff.
Because you're not just shooting in the dark anymore. They know what time you go on Twitter. So, you know, if your shelf life on Twitter post would be, 1 minute, then they're able to better strategize that, oh, okay, this audience is on from 3 to 5, so we'll just shoot it at that time. The social media managers really gain a lot from these clever devices. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say. It wasn't so much about the age. It just happened to be the hipsters and a combination of the hipsters, the platform that allows for sharing, and also the platform inhibiting and just excessive trolls and negativity, but sharing for a reason. So this was very powerful for Sanders. Thanks for letting me speak.
Of course, of course. Well, I thank you again for joining us, and I know it's really getting late there. And it's the end of our hour here. I'm going to take Lisa off the screen and just ask if there are any questions from the audience. We're happy to take them, and just put your hand up, and I'll either type them or we will put you up on camera if you want to. And if there are no questions, we can wrap it up for the day. So I'm not really seeing any hands going up. So I wanted to say thank you very much to my guests, Lisa, Ali, and Brian. It's been really interesting, I think, and very good to explore how technology is changing things. Oh, I think I saw a hand go up. Oh, nope, clicking on a button, I'm sure. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Brian. Next week on the Dr. DigiPol show, we are going to be hearing from Beth Becker from Becker Digital Strategies. Beth is a social media strategist first and foremost for politics. She's been getting deeper into more other digital strategies of late because that's what her clients want her to do. But she's particularly insightful when it comes to social media, and I always turn to her for advice because I really trust her opinions on everything. And the topic is going to be the platform paradigm. We're going to be talking about, it's time to stop referring to social media as sort of this monolithic thing. And she has a framework for understanding the different kinds of social media and what you do with them. And we're going to dig really deep into it next week. So I hope you join us again as we're here every Thursday from 4 to 5 o'clock. Sometimes we spill over. It all depends on you and questions that you ask. And so we will see you next week on the Dr. DigiPol show. And guard your ears. We're going to try that outgoing music again. And here it is, the Dr. DigiPol show theme song. See you next week. Bye-bye.